Our story begins on Manticore Island. However, it's not the same as it was in Camp Cretaceous or the Jurassic Park franchise. No, this island is different. While, yes, on the surface it's a jungle with a few adjustments to it, inside it houses a facility. There are no lush jungle based environments, there's no desert, there's no Arctic based environments, no, none of that. There's nothing more than containment cells with minor authentications or minor modifications to suit their guests or their prisoners, that being kaiju. Various monsters created through various genetic means here, and there are so many. Some good, some evil, and over 50 of them. Yes, 50. With only 5 of them being considered perfect, deemed worthy in the eyes of their benefactor, or the company's benefactor, or boss, if you will. And this is where our story begins. This laboratory is owned by none other than Daniel Kahn. Yes, a shrewd and unruly businessman. Someone who always wanted what he couldn't have. However, he decided to do something different. You see, he was always looking for a way to outcompete his old rival, Stan Edgar, the main corporation of Vought, or the main man at Vought. You see, they had heroes, but Daniel, he never liked them. The heroes were always shrewd, and easily, and I mean easily exploitable. They were humans after all, but they lied, they cheat, they had these artificial crimes, these acting sets, if you will, and they were no better than the criminals, and I'm quoting this by the way, that they fought. And so Daniel did his research. He made sure he had every detail down about how Vought created them. Compound V, where these supers were fake, but some of them born with powers, or injected as babies. How interesting, isn't it? And so Daniel, after studying how these heroes were fake, decided, no, I'm not going to let this slide at all. What I'm going to do is make something better. What's better than heroes? What can attract people in a new light? Monsters. And while he made 50 of them, one was exceptional. One was special in a way to him. Zilla. Zilla would be Daniel's adopted son that was raised alongside him, Kenji, especially after his family took his homeland and, well, may or may not have run his family out, causing him to be abandoned. And so after taking him under, he would, at a certain age, force him to be a part of these experiments, as he was always a means to an end to him. Something to get off his chest, if you will. And so Zilla would be put through every experiment. You thought the Indoraptor had it bad? Imagine having to go through experimentation to put you through military scenarios. However, Zilla understood that maybe this was going to happen to him eventually. Maybe that this was always Daniel's plan. And so he decided that he's going to be here for a while. So why not make some friends, right? He befriended a few kaiju. Bulk Zardan, the electric speedster. Then there was Bunyip, the camouflaging, snow-wielding creature. And all fluffy and everything, right? Then there was Phosphora, one of the few female monsters. And she would actually be able to bend light. And she would be one of the fastest things on this planet, if not the fastest being on the planet entirely. But then there was Rahitosaurus, a venomous lizard based off the Gila monster, or made from the Gila monster. But again, Zilla would find a way to befriend him. And these would be the 5 perfect monsters. More valuable than anything that Manticore had ever created. However, one thing was becoming a problem, that being Zilla. His intelligence grew, and he was seen to be more methodical from the others, testing to see if the humans were afraid of him, and testing to see how far he could push the guards before they break. So, one day, he decided, now's the time for a jailbreak. So, he plays dead, even lowering his body temperature to the point where he seems lifeless, camouflaged even, almost invisible to their sensors. And this is where the guards kind of see him, and he's just sitting there lifelessly. So they rush in, sounding an alarm. That means that one of their subjects is dead. And Daniel admittedly is upset. How could this happen? How could his prize subject die? And so this is where the guards simply state that they're going to have to dispose of his body and open one of the larger doors to bring out a crane. However, Zilla, hearing this information, and keep in mind, Zilla should have great hearing underwater, and he smiles at this. And in all honesty, he could have a Sakuna-like smile, in my opinion, if he, kind of just gets that sadistic moment. And so, with a sonic boom underwater, he rushes to that door. They can't even shut it in time. He makes what the Indominus Rex escape did look like an absolute joke, as he tears his way through the facility and lets out a gurgle and blood-curdling roar, shattering megaphones, shattering the glass that's inside the facility. And Daniel simply states, so you've become another disappointment. Very well, gods, deal with him and collect his remains. However, Zilla is underestimated here. You thought after all those experiments bombarding him with various forms of militaristic-like technology, you thought he would be weak? Oh, Daniel, you made him stronger, faster, better. You made him more intelligent, to the point where he would be a combat genius, on par with characters like Cyclops and Captain America almost. He's the smartest, the strongest, and definitely the smartest. He utilizes the military, or utilizes the security force, I should say, against each other. And even utilizing his agility, he's now able to burst through the facility and destroy one of the main control panels holding every kaiju. And so, 45 of them all rush out, not fighting each other, not wanting to do anything with each other yet. And so this allows every single one of them to escape. Oh, what a world. What a world, right? And this is where he rips through the last few defenses and meets his friends right where they had planned to escape. Bulk Zardan, Bunyip, Phosphora, and Rahitosaurus. They all leave, with Bulk Zardan joking on Rahito's back and Bunyip on Zilla's. And so, they manage to leave. However, there is one kaiju that Zilla knew about. And he's visibly concerned. He's heard about him, not from the other kaiju, but from how the workers talk about him. He was just so dangerous, malevolent, and malicious that he wasn't even allowed to be fed, as he wouldn't even take the regular food. He would just eat people for the fun of the game. And so, this is where he looks at him. Kraken, one of the deadliest test subjects they've had. And so, Zilla understands that maybe, just maybe, he's going to have to deal with him. However, he can't focus on that right now. As with Bunyip on his back, he has to get to his next destination. And so, they go to the island of, well, kind of Isla Sorna, but it's kind of uninhabited right now. So, let's give it a new name. Moeta Kronos. Or Kronos Moeta. Or Kaiju Island. Whichever one I think I'm going to suit it. We could call it Kronos Island. Or Titanland, something like that. Let me know your cool names in the comment section for this uninhabited, but yet lush and growing island. And so, everyone makes it on land, and Bunyip and Bulgardan are happy to finally touch dry land. Finally, an era where they can run around and be free, free from humanity. But this is where Bunyip sees that Zilla isn't going to the forest with them, and even calls for the others to look. Zilla's still staring out at the sea, understanding that while the five of them agree to be peaceful and to leave humans alone unless they're disturbed, he knows that the other kaiju aren't going to go for that. Some of them need to be put down. Others may just want to sleep in an area of their choosing. But he doesn't really think humanity is ready for that. And this is where he simply tells them he's going to go out there. And whether he understands humanity's going to likely prosecute him or not, he wants to do the right thing. He wants to be better than those who made him. And so Phosphorus simply tells her friend, then we'll be here waiting for you when you return. To which Zilla is happy about it. He's got his friends, he got his, basically his real family out of there. And now humanity is going to need a protector from these monsters. And knowing that these heroes aren't ready for this, he simply dives into the water and goes. This is where we then go to Hawaii. Let's say, I'll probably say a day later after the whole kaiju escape, right? It hasn't been known to the world yet that these kaiju are out. They're honestly just keeping hidden at the moment. And this is where we see everyone relaxing, playing, children, men and women all together. And the beach of Laui is more vibrant than ever. It's a wonderful, wonderful day. But something is going to change this for a certain few characters. We see Nani, David, Stitch, the little blue crash out himself, and Lilo. All pretty much just, going around and having fun. However, this is where David notices something beneath the water. But he can't react in time as he's pulled right underneath the water. And as Nani looks in terror, this is where Kraken reveals itself, holding David in one of his tendrils. And with a sadistic look, he looks her in the eye and eats him. Because again, keep in mind, if you guys watch the Skull Island TV show, Kraken was malicious, blatantly actually grabbing creatures from under the sea and throwing them towards Kong because he wanted that smoke. However, this is where Kraken, before he can even get to Nani, who's swimming away with Lilo and Stitch towards the shore, this is where he feels a sharp bite in his back, and Zilla drags him into the water and begins to rip at him. This is where Kraken gets his footing, or at least his tentacling, and wraps around him and electrocutes Zilla. However, Zilla fights through that pain, thinking he's been through far worse than a mild little shock, and bites down right on to the eye of the Kraken and tears that side off. Like, he tears both the eyes out and tears it off to the point where you can see his brain. And he simply just throws the chunk off, as again, it's not really something he's looking forward to eating. It tastes putrid to him. And this is where Nani simply is like, what the heck? Keep in mind, a lot of the people are evacuated at the moment and kind of hiding in the village, hoping the monsters can't get them. And this is where he does make eye contact with Nani. And keep in mind, this is the first human he's actually seen in a while. The only humans he's seen were Daniel, his, I guess you say, adopted brother Kenji, and, guards. He's been around monsters mainly and cruel people his whole life. So this is, to him, kind of a breath taker. And Nani is honestly speechless. She never seen anything like this, but one just ate her boyfriend and the other one had just saved her. So she's not sure what the heck is going on, but it was so fast. And so this is where we kind of get the scene where, how Nick met Godzilla in 1998. And, this is where he sees a blue glow in the water. And he's like, Oh, shoot. Let me duck real quick. And so he kind of ducks, and he does it with like enough force to kick up some sand. And this kind of does cause Nani to tumble back. But as he looks to see if she's okay, he then turns around to see the Kraken right then and there. And so this is where he and Zilla get into another heated battle. And Kraken actually manages to inflict a nasty wound on Zilla's shoulder. However, Zilla is, not too fazed by it. Fighting through the pain, fighting through the immense crunch he just received. And he begins to tear into Kraken, slitting his throat as he ducks underneath one of his tendrils with his scoots. And then he bites into that same wound and begins to tear him apart, rip him limb from limb, and then bites into the throat again and rips out the full, I guess you could say, vein column, because I remember, if octopuses correctly do not really have bones, right? So he rips out the vein column and the brain of Kraken and then splatters it onto the ground, just killing the beast right then and there as it sinks beneath the waves. However, he's exhausted. The electrical shock that pretty much went into his system as he was fighting Kraken as well. And Nani is like, thank you for saving me. And so this is where Zilla pretty much looks at her. His shoulder injured, and he's got some electrical cuts on him from the Kaiju. However, he was successful nevertheless. However, this is where he kind of feels himself get dizzy, wobbly even, and then boom, collapses right onto the sand in front of her. And she's a little bit shocked. However, this is where his body begins to shrink a little bit. Spine's going in, and he's back in his human form in his test subject suit. And this is where Nani is just looking like, oh my god, he's a man? Ugh, what the heck is going on here? Crap, I gotta get him out of here. I mean, he did save my life after all. Just, dang it, Nani, what have I gotten myself into? And this is where she pretty much like grabs him and drags him off just as, well, the authorities finally arrive to make sure everything's okay. She gets him out of there pretty quickly. He's not that heavy in his human form. And so that's where we head over to good old America. I'm guessing it's not good old America because, we know how this year is going, right? But this is where we head over to Vought International. And this is where we see Ashley pretty much getting to the meeting and talking about the recent incident in Hawaii. Talking about how there seems to be some kind of disturbance in the area. Some people talking about giant monsters. And even shows a little bit of the footage they managed to get from a person who recorded Zilla and the Kraken fighting before the electrical, pulses from it simply shut down the camera. This was Stormfront was like, well, doesn't seem like a very big problem for those people. They should be used to it. To which you kind of feel like you know what she's saying at the same time. Like, you understand Stormfront. But it's like, well, if they need a hero, I don't mind being their savior. How about I go down there with a military escort and we investigate? To which Homelander is like, you sure about that? I mean, giant monsters aren't really our thing. And to which she's like, well, if it isn't a giant monster, then we'll just find out who created the hoax, who created the problem, and eliminate them. Or bring them in for more information. To which Homelander says, well, that sounds like a good idea. And he'll have the Deep arrange a meaningful transportation for her. But this is where we pan over to Nani's house, where Lilo and Stitch are currently outside mourning the loss of David. Now you might say, why isn't Nani out there right now? Because she needs to figure out what the heck is going on. But Zilla does wake up, eventually. And so he's like, oh, what the heck? And to which she's like, you're lucky I didn't need to stitch you. You seem to have healed pretty quickly. To which he's like, yeah, kind of was given that. actually. To which she says, wait, so you're a soup? He was like, no, not at all. Would have been caught dead being one of those, apparently. But I'm a kinda kaiju? To which she's like, kinda, really? So which is like, okay, well, let me explain it here real quick. I was an experiment on an island far outside of your reach. Probably anyone's reach. I broke out and me and some of my kaiju friends took place on the island. That will, they kind of just wanted to live peaceful lives. But I saw that these kaijus or these other kaiju were out there and wanted to come help. I've been hunting down Kraken for about, guess, a day or so. And I didn't know he was coming here, so I just kind of followed him until he decided to finally stop somewhere. Couldn't risk finding out in the middle of the open ocean or by an oil rig, right? To which she's like, what's your name? Zilla. At least that's what I've been called, you know? To which she's like, Nani, by the way. And thank you for saving me and my sister. It's been hard out here, just me and her. We lost our parents, and now we lost David, who helped me out with her. And to which Zilla is kind of like, well, sorry about that. I mean, I'm still kind of getting used to it. She's like, yeah, I guess that was kind of a... Yes, you still getting used to the whole human thing, right? Well, I mean, I was born human, but, reintegrating in society after so many years of torture and becoming this, right? To which Nani simply laughs at it, or, laughs along with him. And say, hey, you're more than welcome to stay here if you want. I mean, I'm not going to sell you out. To which he's like, thanks, I appreciate it. And go ahead and grieve. Guess I'll just get myself together, right? To which Nani's like, yeah, you do that. But this is not where we end off here. We would pan over to Stormfront landing on the island. And this is where she would make her announcement that she's here to save you filth bags. And that's where we're going to leave it off here. Be sure to comment down below, like and subscribe and share with your friends. This is Legendary Grimlock, and you guys have a nice day.